This is Anthony Pascal.
And this is Laurie Elster, and this is the All Access Star Trek podcast. Today we are reviewing Starfleet Academy, episode 104, Vox and Excelso. But first we have some news. You know, we've talked about some awards over the past couple of podcasts. We have some good awards news here for our little franchise.
Well, the Saturn Awards came out, or not the awards, but the nominations. And Star Trek always does okay, but it got 4 nominations this year. Last year was only 2. They were all for Strange New Worlds, so Section 31 somehow didn't get nominated for anything.
Somehow. I wonder how.
Best show for the acting categories, Ethan, Christina, and Paul Wesley, who won for season 2 for Best Guest Star.
I'll be honest, I can't really fathom that one, but I think Christina Chung deserved it. I think she was the shining star of this season for me.
Yeah, no, she was good. And I think this is like her first ever nomination for anything, really. Certainly for Saturn Award. And I think for anything related to Strange New Worlds. Ethan's been nominated every season, hasn't won yet. And so, yeah, fingers crossed. I think Star Trek has done pretty well. You know, Picard season 3 won this, best series, sci-fi series award, which is the last time a Trek show's won. So, I think it'll be good.
The awards are on March 8th. Are you going to go and cover it, do you think?
Probably. I mean, I didn't go last year because I knew that Star Trek wasn't going to win anything. I thought about going because Shatner won a Lifetime Award. I did go the previous year when Picard cleaned up. So
was that when Marina yelled at you?
Yes, it was. Exactly.
Sorry. I'm still obsessed with that story.
Maybe that's why I didn't go last year, even though I was afraid Marina Sirtis would randomly show up for no reason.
And be like, that's fucking rude. Sorry.
Exactly.
Okay, well, in other awards, the Canadian Alliance for Film and Television Costume Arts and Design has nominated both Strange New Worlds and Section 31. For costumes. In fact, Strange New Worlds got 4 nominations and Section 31 got 2 for specific categories. And unsurprisingly, some of the Strange New Worlds nominations, 2 of them were for Wedding Bell Blues, which did have some extraordinary costumes in it.
Yeah. And the Star Trek shows produced in Canada often get nominated for these awards. Because they don't, it's kind of curious because there's all these guild awards, and some Trek shows qualify for the Hollywood Guild Awards because post-production is done here, like visual effects, sound editing, stuff like that. Some only qualify for the Canadian Guild Awards because all the costume people work in Toronto and stuff like that.
Right. Like there's a lot of Canadians in that crew.
Fingers crossed. They've done well at this award show before, but there's a lot of competition. I mean, it's when you look at the list, you realize how much stuff is shot in Canada. A lot, HBO shows, a ton of stuff. So, but we'll see. Maybe Section 31 will win here and to add to their Razzie Awards.
Something else to put on the shelf. I think they're up against Resident Alien in a category or 2. Robbie McNeil's show. Which was great, by the way. If you haven't watched it, folks, you should.
Absolutely. We broke some Masked Singer news. If you remember when we did our preview of 2026, I mentioned that the Masked Singer is going to do a Star Trek thing this year. So on March 18th, they're doing a themed episode about Star Trek, and there's the set gets redone. It's a singing competition show. If you've never watched, it's on Fox. It's celebrities dress up in costumes and sing, and then a panel of celebrity judges judges the masked singers.
But do they have to guess who they are, or are they just judging them?
Both, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's some guessing.
And then various masked singers get unmasked during the season. Apparently for the Star Trek episode, there's going to be 2 unmaskings. So when we got our first ever Trek movie article posting on the Masked Singer subreddit, I like to keep track of.
Congratulations, Tony.
Yeah, which subreddit is talking about Trek movie? There's always the usual suspects, but it's fun when we pop up on a new subreddit.
Yeah,
and they're like, "Ooh, 2," because Fox gave us some exclusive first look stuff. So, all the judges are dressed up. It's clearly they worked with Paramount, because they've got a kind of an interesting combination of Strange New Worlds and original series costumes, and then one of
Voyager.
them and one was Voyager. But so there's like Robin Thicke is dressed as Pike from Strange New Worlds, but Ken Jeong is Spock from Strange New Worlds, but Jenny McCarthy is Rand from TOS, because I guess she's not
anti-vaxxer.
Yeah,
Jenny
exactly.
McCarthy.
Yeah. Hey, we can't control that, So
no.
And what's fun is we first heard about this because we have friends who are in the in Los Angeles in what's called the away
team.
Yeah, and they are cosplayers and just a fan club, and they get invited to local things, just like the one in New York gets invited. Like they were all at the premiere. Not all of them, but a bunch of them were at the premiere.
Yeah, they're always invited to the big events. And in fact, a couple of years ago in LA, they did a Trek themed Wheel of Fortune, and a whole bunch of the LA away team members were there, including our own Christine. Yeah,
and I think there's another game show coming up later this year. Was it? I forget, but so there's when you want a bunch of Star Trek fans dressed up as Star Trek fans to show up to an event, you know who to call, and it's these guys.
Exactly.
And they're happy to do it.
And actually, while we're talking about them, I do want to say, and I know the New York group does this. Actually, they both do. They do a lot of charity work in their cosplay. Like they'll go to hospitals, or they'll go to different events where they can help kids and do things and encourage STEM and all that stuff. So it's like a bunch of people really using their Star Trek for good.
For good. Yes, exactly.
For good.
I think it's Let's Make a Deal. And there's another Let's Make a Deal Star Trek thing coming up or something.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's what I said, Wheel of Fortune. And you were right. It was Let's Make a Deal. And I think they're doing another one. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so it's been a while since we've talked about this. Star Trek Scouts is back. It's back.
Even though I call them the Sprouts. No, there's a whole bunch. Like, I am so intrigued by this whole concept, because they pop in out of nowhere, they disappear, they come back. We don't know when they're coming. And now there are more of them. We don't know really anything about like the decision to create it. There have been no public conversation.
We did learn when it was announced that there were 20 commissioned, and it does seem like it breaks into 2 seasons, I guess, because the first 10 were all these asteroid things, right? And now they're doing a whole new thing, which they're calling holodeck rescues. So they're no longer blowing up wacky, kooky asteroids. Now they're going on the holodeck and having different adventures. I guess each one they have to save an adorable baby alien of some sort.
That's a good gig. Nice work if you can get it. But
there's a lot more going on. Obviously this is a preschool thing, but there's more science in these. I mean, this show feels like it's evolving. It feels like it's a bit smarter. There's some interesting Star Trek stuff. And the trailer shows, I think we're going to get some tie-ins to Captain Proton, because we saw some in the trailer they released. There was Satan's robot or multiple Satan's robots. It could be just an Easter egg, but maybe Proton shows up in one of these.
That's so funny. It is. I'm glad they've stopped from like spinning a wheel to decide what to do.
Well, there is a wheel function when they decide which adventure to go on now. But
that's fine. But when you're making a decision about what is the right thing to do in the situation, I think it's good to teach kids how to think about things and decide what to do versus telling them to just spin a wheel and do whatever it says.
Yeah. So, and there's some cool tech that they should have in real Star Trek, like a handheld tractor beam, handheld replicator is really smart, actually, to be able to just replicate something on the fly. It's still a little weird that they give the kids phasers.
Right? Well, they got them in Prodigy too, remember?
Yeah. All right. So there's a couple Academy news things. Academy's getting its first media tie-in, which is a comic book coming from IDW.
The actors are so excited. The cadet actors are so excited to be in a comic book.
Yeah, they don't have action figures yet. This is actually a reasonable amount of Star Trek Academy merch at the official Star Trek store. which you could get.
But do they have Warp Core pajamas?
No, they should. Hopefully.
That's what I want. I want the Warp Core pajamas. I'm putting it on my Christmas list for this year.
They definitely need to get that. So, that'll be interesting to see. It launches after the show wraps up. So it comes in mid-April.
And I assume, do you know, I don't know how much they tie in these things. So is this something that technically sort of takes place between our 2 seasons of Starfleet Academy, or they're not? You don't know.
They have done that with Strange New Worlds, so it quite possibly does. But they haven't let us know. It obviously happens after the start of the school year.
Right. Because they all know each other and they're all doing stuff.
And they're all cadets. Now, the official description describes Terima as a cadet of the Academy, but I think that's just, I don't know. I don't think, because some people are like, wait, does she switch from the War College to the Academy? I mean, maybe she does later in the season, but I think that's just a weird thing in the description of the comic book and not necessarily a spoiler for the season. So
right, it could have just been a shorthand so that they didn't have to.
Yeah, they are cadets.
Words. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, she is a cadet.
Yeah,
sort of. Yeah.
What else is there going on?
Well, we're always trying to figure out how well these shows are doing. And it's hard to tell because nobody shares numbers. It's hard to get numbers. But someone actually that I kind of know in a funny way, Ted Linhard, who's been doing research and analysis in the TV business for decades. He used to work at NBC. He now has his own Substack and he gets a lot of official data. So he's using a company called Luminate, which is respected for getting data in the industry. And his analysis tells him that Starfleet Academy is doing better than the other Star Trek shows have done of this era so far, based on the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it's super early. Our previous article on this noted that looking at kind of the more obvious data, which is tracked by Flix Patrol and others, that the show has shown up in the top 10 list and then drops off the top 10 list on Paramount Plus and on Amazon channels, where it's actually doing better, whereas other shows do consistently better on those top 10 lists, all the Taylor Sheridan shows. And the Luminate data definitely shows that the Taylor Sheridan shows like Landman and other shows on Paramount Plus are doing better than all the Star Trek shows. But we kind of, that's a given that Taylor Sheridan shows are doing better than Star Trek. And we've seen that in the Nielsen top 10 lists as well. So, who knows? But it was, I guess noteworthy that it's outperforming Strange New Worlds significantly, season 3, comparing the first 2 episodes of that season versus the first 2 episodes of Academy. And the only, the big question is, will Academy sustain the momentum? Because really, streamers want to see that you complete a season. It's called the completion. Completion rate is a thing that is very important, and way too early to see that. And it's not as if they already got a second season. So, who knows what Paramount is looking for to give them a 3rd season? Who knows if it's even possible that they get a 3rd season?
Yeah, I really hope they do, but I don't know. It just seems very impossible or just really hard to figure out, hard to determine. But I do want to thank our listener who posted about this Substack, about Ted's Substack, which I know Ted, and I didn't even know that he was doing this.
Yeah, this showed up on Reddit too. I mean, this has become, what's weird is this has become another political issue, like the political nonsense I posted with. There's people who are like saying, well, no, look at the Flix Patrol data. No, this data shows, and it's like, and people think we're making this stuff up or he's making this stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, why do you, these are out there. This is analysis that's out there. We're going to, if it shows up on the Nielsen top 10, we're going to report that. If it doesn't show up in the Nielsen top 10, we're going to report that because that'll be significant.
If it shows up and then leaves and plummets to the bottom, we'll report on that.
Just like
Ted reported on it. He doesn't even like Starfleet Academy very much.
Yeah. We're just like, hey, this is out there, and but I hate how this show has become a political football and, just, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to give those people too much oxygen, but we'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens. Personally, I think that Paramount will probably not give the show a third season, mostly because they're probably going to move in a new direction with Star Trek. But if it is a hit for them, they could easily keep it around, so depending on how you define hit. Because, one of the thing about, sure, the Taylor Sheridan shows are doing better, but Taylor Sheridan's leaving. He's already, so we don't know if they're going to renew Alex's contract, but they're definitely not renewing Taylor Sheridan's contract because he signed a contract with NBC Universal.
They couldn't do it if they wanted to.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and with Alex's, they could renew it just to do this show. We don't know.
Yeah. Academy's outperforming another franchise show, which is they did an NCIS spinoff, and it outperformed that a bit, and that show got canceled after one season. If that means anything.
I don't know.
Who knows what?
Sonequa Martin Green's new show is doing very well. It's already been renewed.
Right. That's on CBS, right? That's just a procedural Blue Blood spinoff, right?
I have never seen it, but yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Even though it's I think it's like set, I don't know. I don't know where all those shows. It's probably set in New York or Pittsburgh or something, but it's shot in Canada.
Of course it is.
Exactly. People are screaming. It's in this city, how could you not know that? Aren't you Blue Bloods fans? The answer is no. So
yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a great show.
Speaking of great shows, let's talk about episode 104, Vox and Excelso, a.k.a. A Voice on High.
I mean, it's hard to compare things to a pilot because they're throwing all the money and it's extra long and yada, yada. But I think certainly post-pilot, this is the best of the three. I mean, we've only had 4 episodes, but I would say it's better than the pilot even. I think this is it's the most Star Trek episode they've done. Maybe it's because I'm a fan of Klingon episodes and we had a space battle. And I thought the character development was really good. I thought the balance was good. The pacing was good. I have notes, so this isn't a no-note situation, but I thought it was excellent. I enjoyed it very much.
I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the pilot in terms of just sitting and, being riveted. But I will say that more I watched this, the more I saw that they're doing an incredible job of layering every scene with the theme of the episode. Like this episode in particular, they, first of all, did a great job, I think, of making it personal and global. Like the stakes are big and the stakes are personal at the same time. But I also felt like they were really just layering stuff in, and maybe you miss something the first time and you see it the second time. And you and I have already talked about that, which we'll talk about in our podcast now. But there are things I missed that I was like, when did that happen? But I think that they took the themes and the emotions that go behind the story and wove it into almost every moment.
Yeah. And one of the things this show is doing is, we often talk about there's an A story and a B story, which is standard Star Trek and standard television.
Television, yeah.
Or C stories. And this show is good at, there is an A and a B story possibly, but they're actually very related, and they're more character A and B stories, both related to just a single A story plot. And we saw that in episode 2, especially, and here again. So you've kind of got an Ake story where Ake, in this case, is dealing with the Klingon general, and her and Vance and others are dealing with that, as you said, the big stakes, the galactic stakes. And then you have one of the cadets on a very personal level, in this case, Jaden, but it's all related to the whole Klingon diaspora thing. And so they kind of easily go back and forth. And this is just one of the cases where, even though basically everyone who works on the show worked on Discovery, not notably not the writer of this episode, either writer of this episode, but Discovery would just do the things where they would have an A and a B and a C and a D sometimes. They were trying to keep all these plates spinning, and especially when you look at season arcs, and things would fall apart, and it just holds so much better together here, I think.
It does. And even the fact that, one of the sub-stories is, not sub-story, but one of the stories is Jaden has a fear of public speaking, which is such a small little nothing, but it ties in exactly to the bigger story of his history, his people, what's happening. the galactic stakes, everything. So it isn't just, and then there's a side story about a kid who's not good at debating. Like, it's not that at all. They are doing, I think, really hard work and lots of planning in advance. You can tell they've had time to work through these scripts.
For example, in the pilot episode, Jaden, there's that thing where he drops the binoculars and it creates this little scene. And then he mentions he's a bird watcher. It almost seemed like a joke. And now we realize how important those binoculars were. Those were his brother's binoculars. And the bird watching thing has a whole different meaning now because he didn't want to kill the bird of prey, because he's nonviolent. And, it just means more now.
Same thing with, remember last week, and I can't believe I'd forgotten about this, but last week when they were watching the ad for Starfleet Academy, and I was like, this is just a way to just make a Stephen Colbert joke.
Yeah.
But the ad was in that device. The ad is what gave him the hope that he should come to Starfleet Academy.
I was surprised it was, I thought there would be the visual thing from that ad, because it was just an audio thing, a little, I guess they spread these MP3 players around the galaxy to get people to come join Starfleet Academy. But it makes sense, I guess. I think the big thing for this episode at a macro level is someone who loves world building, and we complained about this on Discovery. They were so afraid of dealing with the Klingons after season 1. When they jump to the future, they're like, let's just pretend the Klingons don't exist.
I mean, to be fair, I don't blame them. Like, they really were, but they made some weird decisions and were severely punished for it. So I can see why they'd be like, you know what? Let's just not. But I think in this case, they've done a great job of trying to fill in those gaps, explain what's been happening, create a situation that, of course, we can relate to world events in our own way, and raise really big questions about, when you think you're helping someone, are you really helping them? Like, you can't just, like, those are very interesting, important, complicated questions.
Yeah, this episode did try to really dig into some Star Trek themes. And it reminded me of several past episodes, big and small episodes. And they wanted you to remember certain ones. I mean, the drumhead was brought up specifically because they were trying to, although there was a weird thing where, so the Doctor quotes the Sati quote from the drumhead, which Picard, but like,
it was Picard quoting Sati, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure it was done correctly on the day and in the script, but the way the audio is edited, it cuts off some important parts where when he says it doesn't fully make sense. But only if you've, watched enough Next Generation where you have it, word for word in your head and you go, wait, that's not exactly what Picard said. But, there was a lot of DS9, and all, like, remember Ezri called out the fact that the Klingons are a bunch of hypocrites and corrupt, and maybe their empire should fall apart, because this episode dealt with that as well, because the Klingons love a good myth. But
and they're always falling apart.
Right. What would happen to the Klingon Empire after the burn is an interesting question, and they already had, because one thing you could think is they could have just become space pirates and run around and just started killing people for their dilithium, which would attract. But we already had the Andorians and the Orions doing that, and they formed the Emerald Chain and they became the space pirates. So I guess they could have gone that way with the Klingons as well, but they decided to create this other refugee story, which the Kurtzman era loves a good refugee story.
Sure.
But sadly, it's still an issue, and it will be forever.
There's a reason they love a good refugee story.
We don't know exactly what happened, and that was another theme that ran through this episode of A Modern Allegory, that somehow the Klingon homeworld was destroyed, and there's like rumors of, did they do it to themselves, which wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it in my mind, I'm thinking the Klingons just fell into kind of civil war, essentially, after the burn, and just destroyed themselves. for the most part. And certainly just, they did something to their home world where it became unlivable. It's unclear if it was.
Maybe they found that bomb that Discovery planted at the end of season one.
Yeah. Because they did the thing where a lot of the exposition was handled through FNN reports, because FNN still exists and they still have TV reports that look just like CNN, which somehow has not evolved at all in 8 centuries.
Yeah, no, I know.
There's even the little crawl at the bottom, whatever,
and also like our modern day annoying thing of blaring news when you go into doctor's offices and wherever you go, they're just playing it randomly in the school, which feels weird.
Where we really saw how the plight of the Klingons was through the family of Jade and Craig, through these flashbacks where everything goes sepia tone suddenly, and they're on this planet of refugees basically, and they've become very insular and isolated, and that's, very Klingon, of course.
Mm-hmm.
They reject Federation technology and Federation help because they're proud people. And so, but obviously they were not living large. I mean,
no.
I think they could have handled the refugee planet better. Again, they don't like a good establishing shot. They never showed us the refugee camp.
I was so confused. This is the thing that really confused me as I was multiple viewings, and I was like, I don't understand. Do they live there, or are they on vacation? What's happening? I don't.
They were not camping.
They were camping. They lived there, and then they went to a trading post where there were Federation things, but then got killed for having Federation things.
But we never see this trading post.
And we never see the trading post. And then when they left him there, spoiler alert, I was like, wait, so where did they go? Wasn't that where they were living? I was so confused. I was just, I got, even though it didn't make me miss out on the main story and the emotion of it all and what mattered. So I got all of that, but I did get a little bit lost and like, I don't understand. Where did they go? They just decided to move somewhere else. And did the whole house go? Did everybody go, or just a couple of people? It was very confusing. And did they think he was gonna just die there? Like what?
Well, I think that was handled pretty well later. But yeah, it looked like because he was rejecting his family traditions, his father decided to take the family, the House of Crag, off that planet, because they were only there temporarily as refugees, but presumably other Klingons remained behind at this fabled trading post.
And is House of Crag just them? Or is there a whole bunch of people? Like, aren't Klingon houses
they're
big?
Not one of. I don't. They mentioned that there were like 8 great Klingon houses left. I don't think House of Crag was one of them. I mean, when you look at them, there's not much to them.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, we don't know. Like they said the Klingons were on the brink of extinction. Does that mean there's 27 Klingons? Yeah. I suspect there's thousands. They are scattered to the winds. Billions died, and there's just a few left. And given more time, there won't be any.
Right.
There was a crash at the beginning of the episode, which again was off screen, and we didn't know if his family was dead or alive. And the Federation felt like they should step in because that's what they do. I get the literal debate about this is, this is the thing that was a little unclear of. So the Federation has this planet that they suddenly discovered that was like perfect for the Klingons.
They were just flinging it around. Look at the planet. Fling.
And but it was within Federation space, and they were just going to give it to the Klingons, which seemed reasonable. And the Klingons, though, of course, like won't take charity because that's not.
I know I would say the episode's biggest flaw is that the minute they had that conversation, I knew exactly what the solution was.
Yeah,
like as soon as they said it.
But I think the way they brought the audience to that, I mean, it showed that, the people who wrote this episode, both of whom are new to Star Trek, someone did their research for this episode. Yeah.
Well, I just saw a post. So the writer, wait, what are the 2 writers' names? It was the other.
Well, one of the writers is the creator of the show.
It was Eric Anthony Glover is one of them. And I just found him on Facebook. And he talked about how many of them are immigrants. Like she is, and I think he is, and Kareem. Like he talked about Kareem Diane, who plays Jaden.
Yeah.
And he talked about how many people, and Tunde he brought up. So this one hits close to home.
Interesting. That is yeah. I mean, Alex did mention that one of the reasons why he took this pitch, because there was another pitch that got rejected by Paramount for Academy, was that the creator of the show is Italian and she had this kind of immigrant outsider perspective, because they kept on talking about we've all heard of Kales in Star Trek, but that story is an interesting story if you look at the myth created about Kales fighting his brother. So it's a story about brothers. And that was a big theme of this episode, because you got Caleb kind of trying to be a brother. That, I thought that was a really well paralleled. And then you have Jaden's very cool, very enlightened brother, who is very both Klingon, but kind of a modern Klingon.
Yeah, like a true, very fascinating guy.
Yeah, who gets killed for trying to help his brother by getting him Starfleet technology. And his father's a traditional guy. But I thought, so they were hinting early on, like the Klingons love a good myth and stuff. So they were definitely, I think they wanted the audience to guess the solution, but they were giving us all the clues to get there in case you didn't know, how Klingons were. They kind of brought you in so that it all made sense at the end, which is the kind of fake battle they created to say, oh, let's put on a good show, and they created a new myth.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing about brothers too is that at first when Jaden says, like, you are not my brother, it took me maybe another viewing or thinking about it later in the episode to realize how tied in that is to the death of his own brother. Like, it's not just you don't know my experience, but it's also I've suffered a loss and you cannot fill that gap.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I say, like, even that statement alone has both the very personal and then sort of a big picture view.
Kareem did a really good job in this episode.
He's so good.
Yeah. I mean, they are very good at finding talent. Obviously, we've already talked about how Sandro is very good, and he was good in this episode. At Caleb, he had to do a lot of stuff, and they're showing us that Caleb is like crazy smart. He's super smart. He's very resourceful, and he gave really good advice. Actually, about when you have to do. I mean, just as I don't get up and debate things, but as a moderator, the best advice I got, which was from Tamia from the Sci-Fi Sisters, was like, don't write everything out. She's like, do a bullet point to remind you of the thing you already know. Yeah,
you don't need the whole thing. And I was like, that is great advice. And I also like Darum's advice, which was about like posturing and mood and how to get yourself to the point that you can just do it. Like those were useful.
Yeah, I very much liked, because Jaden was definitely going through some stuff in this episode, and Caleb really tried to help him, but they ended up fighting because there were issues that both of them weren't dealing with. And then Darum came in to show that he is a human being, or sorry, he's actually not a human being. But
Keonian.
Yeah. And we're learning bits about Keonan culture, which to me sort of is starting to remind me of Maori culture, the way he talks about it. Mm-hmm. And when he was on stage, it kind of sounded like a little like the Haka to me. Because they're always, I mean, obviously the Klingons are kind of half samurai, half Viking, so they like to draw from cultures, for these things. I would have liked to have seen Sam and Genesis also come to him with some advice or some help or something to show how all the friends were around. They were there kind of on the periphery a little bit.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I mean, yes, I would have liked to have seen more of them just because I really like those characters, but I think Genesis, first of all, she was the first one when he walked in and the news was on, she made them shut down the news and she immediately went to him. And I think if you look at what happens when something bad has happened to somebody, lots of people of any age don't know how to talk to that person. They just don't know what to do. We've all, if you've had a loss and then sometimes someone just is awkward. And so she, first of all, immediately addressed it, immediately went up to him to talk to him. And then Sam doesn't even know. How would she know? She just stands there and she's like, if there's anything we can do, because she's doing what she can do within her capabilities, which are very limited. But Genesis she always has an eye on him. There's scenes where you can tell she was just talking to Caleb about what to do. Like, she is helping, but in a way by not getting in his face so much.
No, yeah. I mean, I continue to worry that she's a little Miss Perfect. You know, at the beginning, she's the one who has all the answers. She's the A student. She's, so I want to see some flaws in her character too, because I think that makes characters interesting. Caleb has issues. He's hiding food under his mattress because he's got this like weird thing with his mom.
Well, because he grew up in that. I mean, when you grow up like that, it happens.
Yeah, but I mean, he's in Starfleet Academy. He doesn't need to be hiding pepperonis under his mattress.
By the way, Jaden spitting at the pepperoni was hilarious. Remember that episode of Deep Space Nine, Hard Time?
Yeah.
So when O'Brien comes back, I think he still starts to wrap up food and hide it. Like, I think that's a thing that sticks with you.
That's what I'm saying.
Like trauma. It was about trauma.
Yeah, he is still dealing with stuff. He's got mom issues. He's got, been in prison trauma and all that. And so hopefully there's more to Genesis than just being smart and resourceful and astute to people's emotional well-being and all that kind of stuff.
I know. I just really like all of that.
No, we want. I
agree. People need to have flaws.
Yeah, people joke about competency porn on Next Generation. She certainly would. She could. Captain Picard would love her. Because she seems to have it all going on.
Janeway would be thrilled.
As for Sam, she doesn't know how to pronounce Kittimer.
Nope.
But that's
what happens to people like me who read things but don't say them out loud.
Yeah, the Kitomer. The whole debate thing was fun, though. It was a good use of Picardo and a good kind of framing device for the episode.
Yeah, and you know what? When it started, my first note was like, why is he in charge of debating? He's a doctor. And then right away, he explains exactly why he's in charge of it. And I was like, oh, that's good. It's smart. He did have to argue for his own existence. He had to do it multiple times. So it makes sense that that's something he would do, that he would want to do.
Yeah. So we've seen him. He does a biology class. He sings opera. He does a little bit of everything around the school. I guess it wasn't clear if is this a club? Is this an elective?
It couldn't have been an elective because Jaden wouldn't have signed up for it.
That's true. Well, but it could have been mandatory. It could have been peer pressure. Where he wanted to be about.
I fully got that it was mandatory because they were saying it was a very important part of Starfleet life, which it is.
Yeah.
We've seen it over and over in all the shows that is important, and they have to be able to do that.
Yeah, you talked to Picardo about the modern language. I bet this is the one that really struck him because it strikes us because the doctor uses the term chicken shit, which I was like, okay. And then I did not like this moment.
I've complained about this already, so I'll let you take it this time.
The person who calls him out on it, they decided, let's create a nerd and give him big, thick glasses and curly hair and have him look
play with his glasses.
Yeah, and it's like, it was weird. The whole last episode was too many modern tropes, too much YA. There was like 30 seconds of it in this episode, and it was that scene, but I did not like that scene.
No, and look, you said this in your review, and I said it on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. We are nerds. So when I'm watching a show like that, and that guy gets treated, I'm like, why are you treating that guy like a nerd? That guy should be celebrated.
Exactly. He's all of us.
Right. Or make the person not look like the typical nerd of our time. So. Yeah, the little small things like that always bug me in this show because they've done that a couple of times.
In general, the modern language in this episode there wasn't too much of it, but it's still there because that's the style of the show. And I think, as you said, you get used to it. But like I said last week, there's this dial on the show, the kind of contemporary dial and the YA dial, and they were turned down for this episode a good amount, I felt.
Well, especially I think in contrast to last week where they were turned up to 11.
Exactly. The other thing is there was a lot of good Klingon lore. I mean, the toast, like if you know your Klingon stuff, they were tying into stuff that we've heard and or seen on other shows. But then they nicely started adding things, the bow. I know that they've worked with Mark Okrand, so they're creating new words in Klingons, new traditions with Klingons. They added this warrior stew thing to the Kalis myth. So they're not afraid to expand on the lore while respecting the lore. And I thought they handled Klingons very well in this episode.
I totally agree.
I never thought a Klingon would never do that. And we learned that Ake, in her rambunctious past,
got it on with that giant dude.
Exactly.
He's like 3 times her size.
Yeah. But she likes a little Klingon, she's half Lanthanite.
She likes a big Klingon.
That's true.
He likes a little Lanthanite.
Yeah. Don't think, I guess they weren't implying because we saw him beam away. I don't think they're implying that while the camera was off them that they rekindled, but they certainly were flirting and drinking heavily.
Yeah, and they were talking. I think they thought about it and then realized, okay, we got stuff to do.
Maybe after the episode wrapped, they had, and everyone was happy.
Snuck away.
Yeah, maybe. It wouldn't surprise me with her. No, I thought he was good. The general character, at the end when they created the fake battle, and you could tell he knew what was going on. They knew what was going on.
I mean, I don't know how everybody didn't know what was going on. That was the other weak point, was that it was like the most lame fake battle ever.
Yeah.
They needed to add, I understand why they didn't want to spend a ton of time on it because it wasn't actually necessary to do, but it did make it seem like the Klingons must have just been like, oh, I see what they're doing. Let's let them do it. Like, it just didn't feel like a victory.
That's true.
They should have put some drones or something for them to actually destroy,
as opposed to just shooting and missing most of the time.
Yeah. And then having them miss. Like it was far too easy. I get they needed efficiency, but I'm sure there was a way to do it.
And we saw the U.S. Athena do something new. So it already had the kind of detachable wings, which we think it needs to go to warp, but they can remove. I'm not sure we could call this a saucer separation. And if you listen in the audio description, they called it the hull, which doesn't make sense either. But the bridge, it seems like
the hull, the outside of it.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't make sense. But I've called it the flying building. They could basically take the top floor, the penthouse suites, but which the bridge and maybe, some stuff, the kind of Starfleet part of the Academy, and take that off, and it could warp on its own and go into battle and leave basically the school behind. So when they're in their fake battle, they don't have to fly around with the school, and they could maneuver and not put all the students into jeopardy.
And knock over all of those things that are everywhere. And yeah.
Who knows what happens to the fish in the koi pond, during a battle, are those real fish? But I think that makes sense. Maybe we'll see more of that in the future when they need to go into battle. In the first episode, they had no choice because they got attacked. The whole school got attacked. But you wouldn't want to take the flying school into battle if you had to really do it.
No.
And we saw some ships, some Federation ships, some Klingon ships. I think they drew from Star Trek Online for some of these designs, like Picard used to do that as well.
And we know there's a Riker.
A USS. Now, I think we heard that there was a Riker on Discovery, but maybe this is the first time we saw it, but I'll have to double check on that. But, and there was a Lexington and, some other stuff, but the battle, it was a fake battle. So if it were a real battle, you'd want to see more.
But that wasn't the point. Yeah. And it wasn't necessary for what they were trying to do and tell us.
But there will be great songs sung about the Battle of Fan Alpha.
But they did play some fun music during the battle.
Oh, yeah. We got the classic Star Trek, but it was handled very well. The music was done well in this episode. Yeah,
like they would bring in a familiar theme and then kind of weave it out before it got to be too much. I thought they did it with just the right touch.
Yeah.
Except, wait, there was one moment during the battle where they're playing all this music like it's very dramatic and everybody's just kind of sitting on the bridge.
Right. Well, I felt like that was because they all knew it was theater.
Right.
She literally says,
like,
she says, make it look good. Yep. So.
And someone didn't take that note.
Right. Like, how will FNN report this?
Right.
Is that the Federation was defeated and surrendered, because this is part of Federation territory.
Right,
They have
and the
literally surrendered.
Surrendering shouldn't that be a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they knew that, the Klingons need that because of their culture. They need to seize the planet. Presumably the Federation will show up with ships full of food and supplies, but they will say, we're giving this to you because you conquered us.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, maybe that's something, and I thought it was interesting actually that Jaden didn't want Caleb's help either. It was the parallel. It was a beautiful parallel. Because Caleb's like, I can be on my team. We can be a team. It's fine. Given the circumstances, everybody will understand. And he's like, no, that is not my way.
Yeah, Jaden, and what we're seeing, Jaden ends up talking about this, even though Jaden was rejected by his family, or he thought so, and felt rejected by Klingons. He still is just as stubborn as the general, just as Klingon as the rest of the Klingons.
Exactly.
But he's also very Starfleet, and he's trying to create this new kind of person. This person who's both modern Starfleet, modern Klingon. So
and that was his big lesson, because he thought that he was a bad cadet and a bad Klingon. He thought, oh, I'm not honoring either one. And what he learned in the end was that he was honoring both.
Yeah.
And that's a good lesson for a YA show. That's a good lesson for a grown-up show. It's a good Star Trek lesson. It had great impact in that conversation that he had. That scene with Laura Thok was so good, where she softens up and has a whole conversation with him and tells him he's looking at things the wrong way.
Well, you can see why he goes on the ritual hunt with his father. He refuses to shoot the bird. The dad gets super angry, misses the bird, and literally leaves him behind on the planet. Very traumatizing. And it took her to realize, like, no, Klingons, an enraged Klingon, that only helps.
Right.
So he must have missed on purpose. He must have did that to honor you, because he, unlike his brother, who could say it out loud, his dad couldn't say it out loud. This is the only way his dad could basically say, yeah, you should go to Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
And the only way he could do that was to just leave him behind, because he figured he would go to the trading post and buy a ticket to Federation space or whatever it took to get there.
By somebody for mentioning it. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of stuff happens off screen, but I'm okay with not telling us everything and letting us kind of put the pieces together. How did he get to the Academy? Who knows? It took him 16 months or however many months. So it wasn't easy. But no, and I think we also learned a little bit about Laura Thok. I mean, not only did Gina do a great job showing us that there's another side to her, but she mentioned how her father was a freed Jem'Hadar. So we're getting little pieces, because people are obsessed with. She's talked about this. Bob Picardo and her have talked about this. Why people can't let go of or grasp the notion that things can change in 8 centuries, and maybe this genetically engineered species, was genetically engineered again. So the Jem'Hadar. Regardless, we're baby steps on that storyline, but. In episode 2, we also talked about how the show could evolve to show us there's a different way to be a Federation, where they moved the headquarters to Beta Z. He's also showing us, Jaden, that there could be a different kind of Klingon, a more enlightened Klingon, like his brother and like himself, where he's becoming this kind of, different kind of Klingon, but he's still a Klingon warrior because he ate the stew.
Yeah. But he is, even when he doesn't, like initially when he said, I do not want a weapon, like he had to go against everything that he was raised to believe, because he just is who he is, and it's different.
I thought it was weird that the general at the end gave him the bow. And I thought, is that from his dad? And they showed his dad and his mom down on the planet, but hopefully Jaden got to say hi before they left. That was just,
I don't know.
I thought they were going to beam the dad up to the ship and the dad would hand him the bow. I thought that maybe it was just a logistics thing, or who knows.
Well, I have a couple of Klingon nitpicks.
Okay.
So I'm going to throw them out there. One, mom's not involved in decisions and just cooks the food. I found that weird, and Klingons don't seem to do that in the past. Right.
There's plenty of strong female Klingons.
Yeah. So I thought that was weird because the dad never had a conversation with the mother. It was obviously all the dad. Two, the makeup on the Klingons when they were on what I now know to be their refugee camp. Thank you. Was bad. Sometimes it looked like a hat. Sometimes you could see the lines. It just looked like pieces of plastic. There were times that the Klingon makeup, particularly there, looked very, very bad. Reminded me of Strange New Worlds and the episode with the Klingon ambassador.
Yeah. One of the things you learn when you see something get made is how everything is built around lighting. And
yes,
they built his makeup and their Klingon makeup for the lighting on the sets, and it doesn't work on location.
It really didn't work on location. It was distractingly bad at times.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because it's a really talented group and they've been doing extraordinary work. But it was all about lighting 100%. Yeah. And my final Klingon nitpick is, how does it make you a warrior to shoot a bird that's flying in the sky?
Well, to me, what I took away from that was, now that they're refugees, they have limited chances for genuine battle. So hunting has become their version of battle. And so they need to prove themselves in hunts to prove themselves as warriors.
Let's say chasing a wild boar. I'm just going to bring up a fun example from Khan. Chasing a wild boar is a hunt. Shooting an arrow at a bird that's flying in this, there's nothing warrior or brave about it. You're not endangering yourself. You're not in any danger. You're not in proximity to the thing. You're far away. It's actually only a test of your aim. That's it.
Well, I think they talked about the bird earlier. It's like the special bird, and it's a bird of prey. They should have shown that there was some danger, because Jaden said he won't eat the pepperoni because he will only eat the meat of something that died in a fair fight. So he's not a vegetarian, but he's kind of a vegetarian in that, at least it needs to be a fair fight.
Although it wasn't even real meat.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever, So, but they could have made it clearer that this bird is dangerous and could kill them. Like maybe there could have been a mention of how someone in the village was killed by one of the birds or whatever, so that.
Well, something about if you aim and miss, it attacks you, something. Because it was just the whole, it's flying far away in the air. There's no risk. Maybe it was
huge. Like maybe that we got no perspective.
There's still no risk. You need risk.
No, I agree. I agree with that. But I think that the hunt was their closest thing they get to war these days. And so they put all their warrior mythos into the hunt.
I would have bought it if it wasn't a bird. Just saying.
Fair enough. Just pretend that bird was basically a pterodactyl. It was giant.
Okay, that helps.
I mean, I'm not sure how much more I have. There was plenty of Easter eggs in this episode, big and small. They're not always trying to throw it in your face. Some of them you kind of have to dig around to find, which I like.
Yeah.
And they're well woven in, when they're arguing back and forth, they're talking about the Organian Peace Treaty and the Kittimer Accords, whether they pronounce them correctly or not.
But arguing about the specifics, which I thought was good.
Yeah, I did like when the dad says, beware of Klingons bearing gifts, which is a subtle, McCoy Star Trek 2 thing. There was I'm not sure if they were trying to make a big deal about this, but early in the episode, we saw a sign for the Bajor Club. At first, I thought we were seeing the Bajor Club, but then when you look at the group, it was clear they weren't Bajoran. It was just a sign on the wall promoting the Bajor Club, which meets every Sunday. Because if you think about Bajor, they were the space refugees, and now they have a club that meets every Sunday, and things are fine with the Bajorans, but they are Starfleet's previous version of the oppressed people who needed help and were very proud and often rejected help.
I will tell you, you will see more of the Bajor Club.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering, because there was, if you read the crawl at the bottom of FNN, there was a mention of a summit, a Delta, the Navarians and Herodians are meeting ahead of some Delta Quadrant summit. So I'm like, oh, is this Delta Quadrant summit going to be a thing? Like Federation Day was in Picard, where everything was leading up to, was it Federation Day or, or something like that? Yeah. I mean, they're good at layering these things in where the show isn't heavily serialized like Discovery or Picard for that matter. But they talked about the Beta Z and other stuff from previous episodes, which you didn't need to know, but added another layer to this. So,
I have some good lines that I think are worth mentioning. I like to note dialogue that's good.
Okay.
I did like when the doctor said, "Long before you were a twinkle in your father's pants."
Do Keonians? I guess Keonians have pants.
Well, I was like, you're making a lot of assumptions about Keonians and genders, and who knows? But it was still funny, and I didn't care
because he is a fish boy. So how does that all work with that species? Right. Who knows? Who
knows? But it was a very funny thing. And then other funny ones, I did like when Jaden said, "I am not hitting you. It would be like squashing an insect." He says, but. In terms of being, and also Laura Thok says to Ake, "You look very bad." She goes, "Thanks, Laura." But in terms of very good, smart dialogue, also serious dialogue, there were a couple of lines that I think should be put on, posters somewhere. But one of them was, "There's been a tragedy. Don't compound it with ignorance," which the doctor said, which I thought was great.
And so timely to this week.
Timely and succinct and very timely to this week. Very timely. I thought that was a big one. I also thought when Jaden said, "There is no protection, not from loss. There never can be," which just hit me in a deep way. And also when he said, "Maybe the trick is not to let go of the past, but to let the present in." Like there was a lot of profound stuff.
That's the theme of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, if there is one overall theme of the whole series so far.
That's it right there. Yep. And then lastly, just Vance, after looking in Aki's personal file, said it was insane and had a lot of plot twists.
Right. He described it as War and Peace, which is still a thing in the future. Fair enough.
It would be. I believe it would be.
Yeah, no, he was good in this episode. I liked how he kind of put on a show at the end. He acted all admirably, right? He had because he is the commander-in-chief of Starfleet, so he had to get all like basically declaring war on the Klingons, war in air quotes. You can't see me using air quotes, but and then he did the surrender. Yeah, I thought it was I would have liked to. When I talked to him last week, we couldn't ask him about this, but it would have been fun to talk to him about putting on his admiral voice or his dadmiral. Everyone is saying maybe I shouldn't have said zaddy. It's really dad. He's really a dadmiral.
Admiral. Well, I think he's also a zaddy. There was also this great, very Holly Hunter-esque moment when she's with the Klingon general, and then he says, as he's leaving, he says, "The fight is where I live," and then he beams out, and we just see her taking it in. There's just it's a moment. It's just a moment, but it's why you get a Holly Hunter to do a role like that, because she's I feel like in that 1 second you see her listening again, hearing it in her head, realizing what it means, and starting to think about how that should change the way she's looking at it. All just in a look that you could miss.
Which showed that Holly read the whole script.
She did. Well, everyone says that she rehearses. Right. Everyone talks about how she rehearses. And was it I think, Paul Giamatti said she's off book I think it was him who said it. She's off book by rehearsal.
I think Oded said that to me, but I think they've all talked about how she prepares a lot. The showrunners have talked about that, and they do rehearsals and stuff like that because she has a process and they use that process and it's working for them, obviously. But that, in a way, this is very rewatchable episode because there's subtle things happening you don't notice the first time. And every time I've watched it, I guess 3 times at this point, I notice new things every time.
You noticed the thing that I didn't see at all, which was that he takes his brother's pendant when he dies and then he puts it on at the end, which I did not. I watched those scenes again after you said that when we were talking earlier, and I was like, oh, he does. I missed it.
Right. He kept his brother's pendant. You see when they did the Klingon death ritual, he kind of grabs it subtly. Yeah. And then he kept it in a box. But it wasn't until Laura Thok basically said, your father honored you as a warrior, that he put it on himself, accepting himself as a Klingon warrior.
Yes. Yes.
Which I think he said in the debate, that I now believe I'm a Klingon warrior.
Yep.
Because the term warrior has a broader definition than, just someone who killed a bird or killed someone in combat.
Especially more than someone who killed a bird.
So, no, this is a great episode of Star Trek. I think you could show this to someone who was a fan of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, didn't know anything about Discovery, didn't know anything, and just said, look, this is way in the future, so something is going to be different, but just watch this.
Yeah,
and they'll get it and like it.
I agree.
And then they'll ask you, why do people just beam out of rooms randomly?
Instead of just leaving?
Yeah. And how do the thing is, how do they, like when the general leaves and he, because he has a closing line and then poof, he's gone. Like because no one ever says one to beam out. They just poof away. But also when she showed him the planet, she just flicked her hand. Yeah. And the planet appeared without any that's. Yeah. You never need to tell. I mean, the technology is so smart, even though we don't think that this ship is, it could be like Zora. I think it must be, because things are happening where it's clear an AI is taking context clues. And so you don't need to say one to beam out. It knows that because it's had. Just scary. What if it gets it wrong? Right. I'm sorry, Captain. I thought he wanted to be beamed into space. But right. No, he was just in the middle of talking. Now he's dead. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so if you haven't had a chance, rewatch this episode. Yeah, you'll find more stuff every single time. Sadly, you'll also notice the makeup a little more every time. Yes, on the sepia tone planet, which was a planet that, just for giggles, that was a Star Trek planet. Things, they grab something out of the lore that was mentioned before. Yeah. The new planet they found out of nowhere, perfectly fine. You figured they would, by the 32nd century, the Federation would know all the inhabited planets within their borders. You'd think. But, like, oh, look, we found another one. So I guess it was uniquely suited to the Klingons. It was like volcanic and stuff like that. Yes, it was identical in climate. Yes. Weird. And so in a couple seasons, we will see the Klingons, blow up their new moon, right? That's something to look forward to. Yeah. Okay. So we're done with this one. For Bits of the Week, I just want to follow up on last week's bits, where we talked a little bit about the Shatner cereal eating in the car, and I suggested that it all felt a little staged. It was. Yeah, it was 100% staged. All of it. Not just him walking around holding a box. Because who walks around holding a box of Raisin Bran? I mean, so it was all fake. The original report from TMZ, it was all part of a viral campaign for a Super Bowl ad. We got a taste of that Super Bowl ad, and it's going to feature Shatner on a kind of bridge, and he's in a kind of captain's chair. But it's also... Some people probably do call it the captain's chair. That's true. It's a toilet. It's a toilet. I mean, it's hard. You need to look closely in this clip because it's very short and it's all black. But it is a... Now, he's wearing pants. I think this is important.
Yeah, and I think the lid is closed.
Yeah, exactly. But he is on a captain's chair / because the whole message is about having a fiber diet and being healthy, and with Raisin Bran. I'm not sure Raisin Bran is necessarily health food, but that they are pushing. It does have fiber, lots of fiber,
and it tastes bad, so maybe it does.
Yeah, but I mean, 94 years old, William Shatner is still the consummate pitchman. I mean, and Super Bowl ads are not cheap.
Does it get bigger than a Super Bowl ad?
It literally doesn't.
Yeah, I think he's reached peak.
Well, this isn't his first Super Bowl ad, I don't think.
It wouldn't surprise me.
The Super Bowl is coming up in a couple weekends for those of you, especially overseas, who may not know, but there is nothing bigger in America than the Super Bowl, and Super Bowl commercials themselves is a whole thing. There's whole articles that get written about.
And they're all released before the Super Bowl. Anyway.
Yeah. But they're all part of larger campaigns. So we'll probably see this Shatner as part of a bigger Raisin Bran campaign, for the next few months. I mean, what's weird is he says yes, like he does. He will promote anything, famously Priceline, but he's done lawyer commercials, CPAP machine commercials,
weird devices that don't work and do work, and crypto things, and everything.
It's like, Bill, if you're getting asked to do Super Bowl commercials, maybe there are things you don't need to do at 94. But he's a say yes to everything kind of guy.
If you've read his books, there's one in particular where he talks a lot about that he's never lost his fear of running out of money, and he's never lost his fear that the phone's going to stop ringing.
Yeah, I get it.
So you know what? I get it. I get it. And he seems happy enough. Yeah. He seems to be doing fine.
He's also going to be in I forget, but the Property Brothers have a spin-off show.
It's been on.
I haven't seen it yet, but there's an episode, and there's a thing with him, where he uses a communicator in it during the episode.
So it's a Bluetooth. It's one of the toys. It's the Bluetooth. But Bob Sesko was telling me that he watched the whole thing and that it was great. He said he loved it. It's very funny. Yeah. So worth watching.
Do you have a bit?
I have a bit. First, I have a little small thing just to throw out there, which is Tig Notaro has been nominated for an Oscar.
Wow.
Her documentary, Come See Me in the Good Light, about Andrea Gibson, is Oscar nominated. So she is nominated for an Oscar. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is I watched, because it's a podcast, but it's a video, the first episode of Dropping Names with Brent and Johnny. Which is Jonathan Frakes and Brent Spiner have a podcast now. Their first guest was LeVar Burton. They did a fan question episode before that. But basically the point of it, and it is a funny thing, because people in their industry get to meet all kinds of other people that they dreamed of meeting. And so every time someone names a famous person, a bell goes off. It's a great gimmick. It's actually fantastic because they laugh every time it happens. And LeVar Burton has worked with everybody. I mean, LeVar Burton as a first guest, I don't know how it's going to be hard to top that because his career is actually pretty extraordinary. And he's met so many people. I don't even want to spoil the best joke about the ding, so I won't say that one. But I mean, they talked about everything from LeVar's history, the people he's worked with that they didn't even know about, all kinds of crazy stories. Plus, they talked about Brent's first day on Star Trek. They talked about stealing uniforms when they left. Frakes talked about being in the edit room and how whenever he couldn't find, he just didn't, it was like, this isn't going well, I need a shot of something. He would remember to check what Marina was doing, because she was such a good listener as an actress that she was always doing something interesting that he could cut to. Like, it's a mix of great Star Trek stuff and then just really fun bonkers stories. They've all worked with people you can't even imagine that they've worked with.
They said this isn't a Star Trek podcast, and it's a video YouTube thing as well. The first thing was bit Star Trek-y because they had Star Trek fans come in and ask them questions about their characters, and then they had LeVar on and they talked Star Trek. But I think as the show evolves, it will be less and less Star Trek. But it's starting off a bit Star Trek-y.
But it'll weave in where it makes sense, and it made sense. And then it was. I just really.
Oh, I'm not complaining. I'm
I know the more Star Trek, the better. But
yeah, they know that they can't help but they are both accepting how Star Trek is part of who they are, and so they're not avoiding it.
And I think it'll be less of that depending on who their guest is. And then, of course, there are funny things they don't remember. Like they were talking about Paul Sorvino, ding. And and then they remembered that he was on Star Trek, but they thought he was a Klingon because he was Worf's brother. And you're right that he was Worf's brother, but he was not actually a Klingon.
Yeah. He's a Russian because Worf is an orphan.
Right.
Sort of like Jaden. Jaden's not. Caleb said that they were both orphans. Caleb was
because
when he was
they thought his family was dead.
Yeah,
that's why.
All right, so we're 4 episodes into Starfleet Academy. We're in the mid-season. Episode 5 next week is the one everyone says is to DS9. I haven't watched it.
I'm very excited for you to watch it, and we have some good stuff about it from interviews I did at the premiere that gave us some good insights into this one too.
And I will be talking to Tawny Newsome on Monday, so that'll be part of next week. So you and I interviewing Tawny to talk about this episode will be part of our next week's episode because she was the co-writer.
Yes, she was with Kirsten Beyer, who I now know as Kirsten. I've been calling her Kirsten for years, but it's Kirsten.
How would Sam pronounce that?
Preston.
All right. Okay. On that note, goodbye.
Bye.